At sunset in 1770, a ship appeared off the coast of Mombasa. It did not announce itself with cannon fire. It did not raise a flag. It simply arrived and waited. From the shoreline, its silhouette felt wrong. Too still, too deliberate. The Indian Ocean had carried ships for centuries, traders, pilgrims, merchants. But this one brought no sense of routine. It lingered at the edge of sight, heavy against the dying light, as if the sea itself were holding its breath. By nightfall, the whispers had already begun. Some said the ship had no name, others said it had many. But among the elders of Mombasa, one word passed quietly from mouth to mouth, never spoken loudly. Nonsuch. It was a name carried by fear, a name tied to stories of silence, villages waking to empty homes, footprints leading nowhere, families erased between dusk and dawn. Ships like the Nonsuch did not arrive with warnings. They arrived when resistance was least expected. For generations, coastal towns like Mombasa lived with a double-edged relationship to the sea. It fed them. It connected them to the world. But it also carried danger. Danger that did not roar like storms, but crept in quietly. The Indian Ocean slave trade was not new. It was efficient, systematic, and often invisible in the records left behind. Mzee Kivuli had lived long enough to recognize that kind of danger. He was an elder now, respected for his judgment, sought out when decisions carried weight. But no amount of wisdom prepared him for loss. Weeks before the ship appeared, his grandson had vanished. No struggle, no witnesses, just an empty sleeping mat where a boy should have been. Kivuli never spoke the child's name in public. He did not need to. Everyone understood what disappearance near the coast meant. So, when a young fisherman came running through the town that evening, his breath shallow, his eyes fixed on the horizon, Kivuli already knew what he was going to say. The boy had seen a ship anchored offshore, something unfamiliar, something that didn't belong. As darkness settled over Mombasa, the warning spread faster than fire. Lanterns were dimmed. Fires were put out early. Children were pulled indoors. Men gathered in small groups, speaking in low voices, careful not to let fear turn into noise. No one wanted to believe the Nonsuch had come for them, but no one was willing to be wrong. The sea that night was calm, too calm, and from the shoreline, the ship remained motionless, as if watching, waiting. Some argued they should flee inland before dawn. Others said running would only make them easier to hunt. The elders debated as time slipped away with the tide. Kivuli listened more than he spoke, and when he finally did, his voice carried the weight of memory. "If they land," he said quietly, "they will not stop." There was no need to explain further. Before dawn, the decision was made. They would not hide. They would not run. They would stand. As the first light touched the water, movement came from the ship. Small boats were lowered into the sea, dark shapes gliding toward shore. The silence broke, not with shouting, but with the unmistakable preparation of muskets. And before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The first gunshot echoed across the sand like a crack of thunder. Birds scattered. Men shouted warnings. The shoreline erupted into chaos. The sailors came fast, hardened by ocean crossings and violence, armed and confident. They had crossed continents without consequence. They didn't expect resistance. Kivuli moved with the others, spear in hand, his heart pounding not with fear, but with memory. With every step forward, he saw faces, sons, daughters, neighbors, who had vanished into the dark holds of ships just like this one. The clash was brutal and desperate. Muskets thundered. Spears struck. Smoke filled the air. This was not a battle planned by generals. There were no formations, no commands shouted in unison. Only survival, only refusal. For a moment, the sailors faltered. The townspeople pushed forward. Boats rocked as men stumbled back toward the water. And then, the cannon fired. The blast tore through the morning, shaking the ground beneath their feet. It was not meant to kill. It was meant to break them. Fear rippled through the defenders. Some froze. Others stepped back. The confidence they had found only moments earlier began to crack. That was when Kivuli raised his voice above the chaos. "Today," he shouted, "we fight for every soul stolen from this land." Something shifted. Fear did not disappear, but it was overtaken by resolve. Men who had begun to retreat stopped and turned back. Others surged forward, not as individuals, but as one. By the time the sun climbed fully into the sky, the Nonsuch was pulling away. It did not fire again. It didn't return. The shoreline fell silent, littered with the cost of survival. Bodies lay where they had fallen. Families searched for loved ones. Names were whispered into the wind. And the sea, unchanged, indifferent, continued to lap against the shore. Mombasa had held, but victory came with a price. The Nonsuch sailed on. And here is where the story becomes harder to find. There are no detailed European records describing this resistance. No official logs celebrating bravery. No Admiralty reports acknowledging loss. The incident fades from paper, not because it did not happen, but because it was never meant to be remembered. History has a way of preserving ships, while erasing the people who stood in their path. The slave trade did not end that day. It adapted, shifted, moved elsewhere. The machinery of human suffering was too vast to be stopped by a single stand, no matter how fierce. But something had changed. Word spread quietly along the coast. That resistance was possible, that the sea did not always belong to the ships. Mzee Kivuli lived the rest of his life knowing two truths at once, that they had saved their town, and that many more would be lost elsewhere. He never learned what happened to his grandson. Some questions do not come with answers. If you are still watching at this point, drop a comment and let us know you're still here. Stories like this matter because someone remembers. Today, the waters off Mombasa look peaceful. Tourists walk the shore. Ships pass without fear. But beneath those waves lies a history rarely spoken aloud. A night when a ship arrived without warning. A people who refused to disappear. The tragedy of the Nonsuch is not only what it tried to do, but how easily its story could have vanished. How many other towns stood alone, fought back, or were erased without record? How many names were lost simply because no one wrote them down? History often teaches us dates, ships, and treaties, but it rarely teaches fear, or courage, or the quiet decisions made in the dark by ordinary people who refuse to be reduced to cargo. And that leaves us with a question. Was justice truly served that day, or was it simply delayed somewhere else? Let us know what you think in the comments. We read every single one. History remembers the ships, but it forgets the people who stood in their way. If this story moved you, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to continue down this path of forgotten history, check out the next video on your screen. What happened next may be even harder to believe.